Destroying the lies.
John Gordon.
Unearthing the truth.
You can't handle the truth. The truth.
Live from West Palm Beach, Florida.
High Noon.
Heard coast to coast and all around the world.
John Gordon.
High Noon with John Gordon.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to The Truth with John Gordon, coming to you live every Saturday at high noon on the John Fredericks Media Network. And we are broadcasting live today from West Palm Beach. Don't be too upset with me, but it's 67 degrees and partly cloudy. It is a pretty nice day here overall. More than I can say for our friends up and down the eastern seaboard, where we come to you live every Saturday on WJFN in Richmond. It is 29 degrees. Norfolk, 31 degrees there on WJFV. Atlanta on Freedom Radio, WMLB, is 25 degrees. My hoses are all frozen over there, I'm told. Philadelphia, 23 degrees on Liberty Radio. Pittsburgh, 17 degrees there on Talk Radio and WCNS. And in Nashville on The Flame, it is 12 degrees. Man, it gets cold in Nashville, just up the road from Atlanta. We've got a good program for you today. Morgan Lerette. He used to work for Blackwater. He is a self-described mercenary. He helped protect our diplomats and high-valued assets in Iraq. I think we're going to get a picture of what the real world looks like when Mr. Lerette joins us here at 12:20 in the first or second segment of our show. You can join us on Rumble. We're streaming there live right now. You can also view us on YouTube Live, John Gordon Truth. We are also streaming live on Getter. And on Getter, you can just go to getter.com, hit the live button, and look for The Truth with John Gordon. We're up there on the top banner once you hit the live button. Come and join us and interact with us there. You can also call us at 804-778-8888. Michael is standing by at the network in the studio in Richmond to take your calls. I'd love to hear from you. Well, I've told you I have not been reluctant in my comments. I haven't held back. No surprise there. Fani Willis is not a good person. I'm sorry, I don't mean to judge. I'm not saying that she doesn't have some redeeming qualities. She certainly has extolled those in a recent speech before the Baptist Church in Atlanta that has now gone viral. I'm sure you've seen it. But this lady is seriously evil. She's dishonest. Just watch the 35-minute rant that she made last Sunday in church in Atlanta. You can find it on YouTube. Just go there and search for Fani Willis. It'll come right up. I've also explained to you that she is the daughter of one of the founders of the Black Panthers, a radical violent group that lived in America in the 60s and 70s. She's politically motivated, and all of her work has been funded by taxpayer money as she pursues her political agenda and building a national reputation as district attorney of Fulton County, Georgia. I don't think she's done herself any good building a national reputation because it is now all of a sudden very much tainted. We now know that she has hired her married boyfriend, that through the district attorney's office in Fulton County, she has paid him $650,000 to be a special prosecutor in Fulton County versus the 19 Trump defendants. $650,000, ladies and gentlemen. The other two special prosecutors have received $12,000 and $36,000 respectively. She said that she paid them all the same. I don't think so. $36,000 versus $650,000. We now know that she accompanied him on trips around the United States and outside the country, visiting elaborate, exclusive resorts in Florida, Napa Valley, the Caribbean. Oh, and now she's being picked on. She is being picked on because she is a black woman. She's being just persecuted because she's a black woman. Or is she being held accountable for having used taxpayer dollars to fund her boyfriend, who, by the way, has never prosecuted a case, has no experience in RICO, has never prosecuted a felony, yet she has hired him for his expertise. In her defense, well, judge it for yourself. Here's cut one.
So God told me, I know you're tired of your circumstances, but I'm preparing you. The road ahead of you has some dark days and some bright days. So ladies and gentlemen, on Thursday, I was at a very low point. Really tired of all the pain that people cause.
Well, and now the tables are turning. The judge in the case has ordered her to file a written response no later than 2 weeks, basically February the 1st. She has also been ordered to appear in his court on February the 15th to hear arguments in this case and to explain her actions. It should be very interesting to see. Now, last week on the show, I asked rhetorically, and I think it bears repeating, where is the outrage? I have asked, where is the accountability for Fani Willis since she began this witch hunt over a year ago? Last week I asked, where is the outrage? Where is the outrage from Atlanta's business leaders? Where is the outrage from the Chamber of Commerce? Where is the outrage from Atlanta's clergy? Perhaps more significantly, where is the outrage from Georgia's elected constitutional officers? Governor Kemp, don't you think it might be time for you to speak out? Attorney General Do-Nothing Chris Carr, don't you think it may be time for you to poke your head out of your shell and look into and investigate the politically motivated actions of the Fulton County District Attorney? It seems like there is interest from the United States Congress because Jim Jordan, thank goodness, has opened an investigation. Where is that, by the way? Where is that judicial committee appointed, created by statute last year, that was supposed to have been formed and authorized with rules by now from the Georgia General Assembly? Governor Kemp, where is the charge? Where is the appointment? Where are the rules? Isn't it time for our public officials to do their job, to enforce the laws, and to call out prosecutorial abuse? What do you think? 804-778-8888, or join us on Getter where you can interact live. We can have a conversation there. And I want you to watch this next clip. Here's Fani Willis praying on the sympathies of the congregation at the church last Sunday.
You're tired of your circumstances, but I'm preparing you. The road ahead of you has some dark days and some bright days. So ladies and gentlemen, on Thursday, I was at a very low point. Really tired of all the pain that people cause.
All the pain that people caused? Ms. Willis, with all due respect, what about the pain that you are causing? What about the pain that you are causing to these 19 defendants? I know most of them. I know most of them to be good, God-fearing, outstanding people who care about this country. Rudy Giuliani, America's mayor, who led us through 9/11, who stared the mob down in New York and ridded that city of the corruption. What about Bob Shealy, who has been a member of the Georgia Bar for decades, who's never had a complaint registered against him, who worked selflessly for 2 years to bring accountability and truth to the 2020 election? What about David Schaefer, who was the Senate pro tem of the Georgia Senate, who has worked in public service for 40 years? What about Mark Meadows, who was the chief of staff in the White House, who worked 15 and 18-hour days, who helped President Trump get us out of Iraq, who helped usher us out of Afghanistan, who helped get this country the lowest unemployment of our lifetime, who helped get the highest African American employment ever. What about Ray Smith? He's a lawyer that I've never heard anything but good things about. What about the pain that you have brought into these people's lives unnecessarily, unjustifiably? You talk about the big lie. Well, I've got news for you. That's the biggest lie. When you utter the big lie, and I've seen the evidence in Fulton County, we know there are at least 40,000 illegal votes. Judge Brian Amaro ruled that we had made a prima facie case. Judge Brian Amaro, who ruled that the absentee ballots be unsealed and allow us to look at them. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time. It is time for truth. It is time for transparency. Let us see the absentee ballots. Brad Raffensperger, you could make it happen by noon on Monday. Governor Kemp, you could order Raffensperger to open the absentee ballots and let us look at them. We have a judge's order authorizing it. Get real. Let it happen. Put your partisanship and your pride aside. Let us see the evidence. The truth will set you free. It will prove that Fani Willis is on a despicable witch hunt. It will prove that she is dishonest. We now have proof positive that she is not a good person, and she will be sitting for her deposition in the divorce trial, in the upcoming divorce trial and deposition of her lover and her boyfriend, who she has paid $650,000 to with taxpayer money and gone on exotic trips to Florida, Napa, the Caribbean. Oh, happy day. It's about time. Meanwhile, President Trump continues his legal woes around the country, having handedly won the Iowa caucuses. Ladies and gentlemen, he got more votes than anybody has ever gotten in Iowa in a presidential primary. He carried 51%. 51% is a landslide. Christie's out with his 2%. Asa Hutchinson is out with his 1%. Ramaswamy is out. He made a decent showing, 7%. Oh, Mike Pence, he knew to get out before Iowa. So did Tim Scott. So did Doug Burgum. Only Haley and DeSantis are left. Only Haley and DeSantis are left spending valuable Republican resources that could be repurposed to help defeat the Democrats next November. I don't know what you think. I really don't think it's going to be Joe Biden. I really don't. I think that the Democrats are smart enough to know that they are losing and that they are going to lose. And there's a lot of talk that Michelle Obama might emerge as a nominee. Obviously, the governor of California is a prospect. But I just don't see Joe Biden as the Democratic nominee for 2024. I'd be willing to bet some pretty good money. But it's getting kind of late. I would sit here and tell you, I would sit here and predict that Biden won't be the nominee, but I think it's almost gotten to be too late in the game for that to happen. But not yet. But it's getting there. So they're going to have to make some pretty dramatic changes pretty soon in order for it not to be too late. What I do know is that as we speak, they are hatching a plan. They are making a plan to undermine 2024 just like they did 2020. I don't think the deep state and the establishment are going to allow Donald Trump to be elected president of the United States. And I am willing to make that prediction. I am willing also to do everything in my power to help him and Republicans around the country get elected in 2024. I think it's our salvation. I just don't see this country surviving a fourth term of Barack Obama. Oh, did I say that? Oh, you mean you really think that Joe Biden is pulling the strings? You think he is making these decisions? You know he doesn't go to work until like 9 o'clock in the morning. You know that at 11 he has to take a nap. You know that he is not there doing the heavy lifting like Donald Trump did when he was president, and he was rumored to be working 15 and 18-hour days. He would wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and go to the Oval Office. According to things that I've read, he was hands-on. He was working for the American people. And by gosh, did he get results or what? You can disagree with his personality. You can dislike his crassness. You can object to his bluntness all you want to. But the fact of the matter is he was the best one of the best presidents this country's ever had. And I cheer for his return. I just pray that the deep state and the establishment are not going to concoct some other scheme to take him out. Whether it's by the next coronavirus 2.0, Tucker Carlson says he thinks that assassination is the only thing left. God forbid that. I can tell you that I think that if Donald Trump is assassinated, or even an attempt is made on his life, that this country will devolve into civil war. So you people in the deep state who may be listening, don't try it. If you love this country and you care about your children and your grandchildren, don't try it. It will be the spark, I think, that would ignite this country and devolve us into a civil war like we have never seen before. And I think that President Trump is smart enough and wise enough that his protection is such that that will not happen. I just pray and pray. But as we know, it's happened before. History can repeat itself. I just pray that it won't. So, Christie is out, Ramaswamy is out, Pence is out, Haley's out, DeSantis. Haley and DeSantis only remain. They're wasting valuable resources. Haley refuses to debate DeSantis now, so they've canceled the final debate. Here's the prediction. It's you know it, I know it, everybody knows it. Donald Trump wins the Republican nomination for president. I think that DeSantis and Haley will bow out after New Hampshire. Haley does not want to go to South Carolina and face the certain defeat that she will succumb to there. And that the only question that now remains is, who is Trump going to pick as his vice president? The people that are being the people that are on the short list are Elise Stefanik, Tim Scott, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Well, let me tell you, Elise Stefanik is not up to the job. I like her. I think she's great. I just don't see it. I don't see it. A woman candidate would be very good. And among the women that have been mentioned, Stefanik, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Carrie Lake, Kristi Noem. I think Kristi Noem is out. I don't see her being viable any longer. Carrie Lake is running for the U.S. Senate. We could use her there. Stefanik would be good. I don't know. My instincts are telling me that it's not going to happen. If it is a female, I predict that it will be Sarah Huckabee Sanders. She and Trump know each other. They love each other. They work together for 2 or 3 years, while Governor Sanders is governor of Arkansas and was his press secretary in the White House. Marjorie Taylor Greene, I'm sorry, she just lacks the tact, the diplomacy, the subtlety of kindness and gentleness. I like her. I love her rhetoric. I just don't think it qualifies her to be vice president. She's just too divisive. That would add fuel to Trump's fire. But, while I'm thinking about it, did you see his acceptance speech after Iowa? Do you remember that I came on and I have said that Trump needs to take one step to the middle? He needs to show us his presidential side. Well, last Tuesday night, we saw it. He was polite. He was subdued. He was gracious in his win. He acknowledged his opponents. It was the Donald Trump we need. And I'm just telling you, Susie Wiles and the campaign manager, this is the side that you need to encourage Donald Trump to show us. It will gain him suburban housewives. It will gain him independence. He's already got the MAGA base. Don't worry about it. Go after the suburban housewives. Go after the independents. Those are the people that are going to get Trump across the line. Tuesday night's acceptance speech is the presidential Trump that we need to see more of. I give him a complete A+ all the way, Mr. President. Great job, and you were gracious in accepting your victory. Now, you heard it here first, folks. Here is the 2024 dark horse candidate for president. And before I tell you who it is, I'm going to tell you why I think it is. It is either going to be Sarah Huckabee Sanders or my dark horse pick. He is MAGA all the way. He is conservative. He has the evangelicals. He has self-control. He has been loyal. And here is the punchline. I think he would be the best person to carry Trump's agenda into 2028. That's right, folks. Senator Ted Cruz. We need Texas. Texas, some people believe, has moved to purple. We need Texas. We need Ted Cruz. I think he might just be the dark horse candidate for president. Now, I would love Ben Carson. I think Ben Carson would be a great candidate for VP. It would send all the right signals. He is one of the most thoughtful, smartest, low-key, logical, commonsensical people that I've seen on the national stage. I would vote for him. I would support him for president in 4 years. So that would be a qualification. Here's the reason it's not going to happen. You can't get Florida's electoral votes if both president and vice presidential candidates are from the same state. It's an automatic disqualifier for the Electoral College. It's not going to happen. Now, it could happen if Dr. Carson were to move his residency back to Maryland. That could open the door and pave the way for him, but it's almost too late for that to happen. It's almost too late. So I think we are headed for a VP of Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who I really like. I've met her. I don't know her well. She did a great job as White House spokesperson. She's real, she's honest, and she's fiercely loyal to President Trump, which is probably like his number one qualification. It's not going to be Haley. It's just not. There's too much baggage there. She has made too many disparaging comments about Trump. And ladies and gentlemen, this is important. She would be Pence 2.0. She is deep state. She is establishment. She is a swamp creature. No, it's not going to happen. You heard it here first on The Truth. And I'm John Gordon, and we're going to move on now to welcome our guest, Morgan Lerette. Ladies and gentlemen, cancel your plans. If you've got lunch plans and you're about to turn off the radio and go out of the house, or you're about to leave, don't do it. We're about to get a lesson, and we're about to hear what life is really like. Morgan Lerette has served this country. He served our country as an employee of the Blackwater company that provides protection to our diplomats and high-value targets in states and foreign states that are under siege, that are in the midst of war. And Morgan Lerette has been on the front line. He's authored 2 books. One of them is just coming out, Guns, Girls, and Greed. And then, what was the other one? Morgan, welcome to the show, by the way.
Well, thanks for having me.
Well, it's an honor to have you here on The Truth with John Gordon. The first book was Welcome to Blackwater, or Inside Blackwater?
Yeah, so the first book was Welcome to Blackwater, and then I got a new publisher, so I'm re-releasing it with a bunch of new content, like 30% more contact. So if you like the first book, you're sure as heck going to like the second book.
So tell us, give us a little idea about your background. Where did you grow up? Where did you go to college? How did you get involved with BlackRock? What took you there?
Yeah, so I was prior GWAT, right? So in 1999, I was out of high school. It was like, what the heck am I going to do? Am I going to roof houses in Cottonwood, Arizona, or am I going to go do something else? So I joined the Air National Guard because 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year sounded great. They were going to help me pay for my college. And then September 11th happened, and they activated us for 2 years. So I got to go see all those places that nobody visits, like Oman, Jordan, Kuwait, and then I was in the ground offensive in Iraq in 2003. So that's kind of how I got my start, is a military police, and the Air Force is called security forces. And then I just met people, and this is how Blackwater worked back then, is that you meet people, and they go and they work for Blackwater, and they say, hey, call this guy, he's good. Call this guy, he's good. And that's kind of how the recruiting process was in 2004. So that's how I got my foot in the doors. I had a buddy that joined Blackwater and said, call Morgan. The next day at like 6 a.m., I got a call from Virginia. I was like, who the heck are you? And he's like, get on a plane, let's go.
Wow. So can I just ask you a couple of probing questions?
Yes, please.
Did they pay you good? I mean,
they paid so good.
You're putting your life on the line. And I mean, you are looking evil in the face every day when you wake up, right?
Yeah, I mean, so I was 23 years old and I was making $550 a day, and I was king of the world over there. But that's kind of why I named the book Guns, Girls, and Greed, right? Because that's all we talked about. It's guns, like what kind of guns you have, what kind of optics you're using. Girls, always a topic of conversation. Military members, contractors are no different. And then ideally I would have called it guns, girls, and how much money I was making, but greed sounded better with the alliteration.
So some people think that you're CIA. Are you CIA?
No, I'm not that cool. I was Blackwater. We protected those guys when they would go out into the red zone or outside of the bases. But I was never CIA, especially back in '04. I didn't even have my college degree yet, so they wouldn't have taken me.
So, have you been shot at?
You know, I think this kind of, and the book illustrates this, is that if you personalize what happened, like I got shot at, I think that is where people run into PTSD, right? They hold that in and they take it personal, and they say, he was trying to shoot me, or they were going to blow me up. And at the end of the day, my thought is like, yeah, our convoys got shot at, but they weren't really shooting at me. They were just shooting randomly and hoping they got somebody. So
For sure. But still, I mean, you drew fire.
Oh yeah, I mean the convoys drew fire. We fired back. It was a normal day in Baghdad in 2004, 2005.
Unbelievable. So, do you have any thoughts about the Iraq War and Desert Storm? I mean, do you politically, do you think we should have been there? Do you have an opinion?
Oh, I've got an opinion on everything, so you don't have to worry about that.
Good.
But,
Me too.
When I got there,
I have an opinion. What's the question?
Exactly. So, as a military member, you train to go to war. You're hoping to go to war. You finally get to war, and you're gung ho for it. And as the war progressed, you could see that there was no end state, and even especially like the people on the ground were like, "This is not working." And the politicians always say, "Oh no, it's getting better, and it's going to be great, and we're making progress." That was their big thing, progress. We didn't make any progress at any given point. So as I've gotten older and I look back at it, I think that the justification for war turned out to be wrong. But if somebody comes into your gas station and has their finger underneath their shirt, are you going to say, "Oh, I don't think that's a gun," or are you just going to give them their money? And that's what Saddam Hussein did. He just kept poking at the international community that he had all these weapons of mass destruction, and finally, it just caught up with him. So, absolute mess. Probably shouldn't have been there. It was in a better spot before we got there than it probably is even today. With the Iranians and the Shia-controlled government in Iraq, they're kind of aligning. So, we just need to get out of there. I don't know why we have an embassy. I don't know why we have troops. I don't know why we have private military contractors over there. There's no strategic value in being in a place that's aligned with Iran at this point.
So you said we probably shouldn't have been there. I would take it a step further and speculate that we were told lies to justify our going there. I mean, the whole premise was Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. We pretty much turned over every rock, including the one that Saddam Hussein was sleeping under when we found him and executed him. But interestingly, we never found any weapons of mass destruction. Maybe you did. Did you find any? Do you know anybody who
I did
found
not
any?
find any. I can tell you that I found a lot of stuff and grew up a lot over there, but I definitely didn't find any WMDs. And I mean, I think George W. Bush was looking for a reason, and he would have looked for that reason no matter what. And they sold it. They sold a lie, but they sold it really well. And I'm not going to go back now and say I wasn't gung ho for it, because I absolutely was. But yeah, the premise of going into the war was bad enough, but the inability to have an end goal is what really turned Iraq into an absolute mess.
Well, so I happen to agree with you. I think that they were looking for a reason. They couldn't really find the reason, so they just made one up. The CIA was certainly culpable in having brought George Bush inaccurate information, whether he was a willing recipient or whether they just lied to him. I don't know. But what if it wasn't weapons of mass destruction? What was the motivation? Why were they looking for a reason? Why did they want to destabilize this country and this area that, as you said, is in worse shape today than it was when Saddam Hussein was there, who wasn't a very nice person, by the way. He wasn't a benevolent dictator. He was a fierce, ugly, inhumane dictator that was accused, I believe rightfully so, of killing his own people. But that is so I mean, they could have just justified it on purely humanitarian values, but then they would have had to have gone into countries like China and most countries in Africa, so that probably wouldn't have flown. But so what was the motivation if we accept the premise that WMD wasn't it?
You know, this is, I mean, it's a complicated question for sure, but I think at the end of the day, look at what they named it. They named it Operation Iraqi Freedom when it was really to get rid of Saddam Hussein. It was not to go over there and free the people. So I don't think anybody actually knows what the motivation was, because the government didn't ever have a start and an end point. You can never finish a project if you don't have a start point and where you think is going to be an end point. So they just made an excuse for the start point without having any idea what they were going to do. And it doesn't take much when somebody starts saying, hey, let's go do this. Everybody jumps on the bandwagon. And it's interesting to me that the conservative movement has moved away from war, which was different back in 2002, 2003. And now it's like the anti-war party, and the liberals are the pro-war party. Like, how fast that paradigm switched is amazing.
That is such an insightful observation, and the answer to which I don't even have a clue. Do you have a theory or an idea of what's going on?
I mean, it's all about politics. People worship, especially on the liberal side, people worship politics and not God, right? So what happens is once you get into that worship of an individual, you will do whatever they want. Drink this Kool-Aid, and everybody's like, this is delicious, not knowing that it's poisoning you. So if the Democrats do it, it's fine. If the Republicans do it, it's terrible. I mean, the switch is what's got me just out of my mind. I mean, how do you go from the people that are putting flowers in gun barrels during Vietnam, and now all of a sudden you're like, yeah, let's just go bomb. Let's go spend a bunch of money in Ukraine that we don't have. Like, it's asinine. It doesn't make any sense.
All right, so I've got a theory. I don't have proof, but I do have the conviction of what I believe, and that is it's not about protecting the American people. It's not about policy. I think you danced all around it, but I'll just go right to the bullseye. I think it's about money, greed, which is part of the title of your book, and power. I think these people have such a lust for power. And obviously, we know Joe Biden is corrupt as they come. I mean, you'd have to be in complete denial to not be able to, or uninformed. And I think that's probably a big part of the problem, is a lot of the American people are uninformed. And I think that it's also, and I get it, it's painful. It's painful to look and to realize that this guy has taken between $20 and $60 million, and he's not governing for us. I don't know who he's governing for. I think he's governing for the establishment, the deep state, the military-industrial complex, the people that Nikki Haley served when she was on the board at Boeing. I mean, I think they're all in cahoots. And I think that the pushback against Donald Trump is that he's a disruptor, and he got us out of Iraq, and he got us out of Afghanistan. And the people who make their living selling armaments and military weaponry don't want to get out of these places. That's their livelihood. I don't know how anybody could ever be that selfish and that self-absorbed and that greedy that they would be willing to trade lives for money. It is a subject or a thought that's so foreign to me. I think it is really painful to consider that would be the motivation.
Well, the military generals are all about war, right? You see a nail, you get a hammer. And they all go and they work for all of these companies. So, of course, they're incentivized to do it. But the first instinct for military people is not, let's figure out a way around this. It's let's use force. And once you have those people that are up in the highest part of the government, they're in the highest part of these boards, like Nikki Haley, you name it. You could go through any general on the planet, and they're on a board for some defense corporation. Like, of course, they're going to say, let's do more war. Why wouldn't we? Like, that's what we do. But we sure as heck don't do it good enough to actually win. So that's kind of why I wrote the book. You have these generals, these politicians, you have individuals like that were so far away from the ground level of the war that they talk about how great they were and how great it went. It's not true. That's why I wrote the book. Like, the ground level is so different. And it's the same thing with politicians, right? They're in their bubble and they think, oh, everything's going great. Groceries are up, but I'm making enough money. And then people like me are like, dude, how are eggs costing us $17? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I think you touched on another really insightful comment that you made almost in passing. But, we go into these wars, but we don't go in to win. I mean, you look at what Trump did in Afghanistan. He went and he put the most powerful bomb that we had that wasn't nuclear into the side of that mountain. And all of a sudden, the terrorists are on the run. And the next thing you know, we have won the war on terror, only to allow it to come back under the Biden administration. But he didn't mess around. I mean, he said, let's go in there. And they packed that mountain full of the largest bomb we owned.
Yeah, we need more leadership like that. And the best leaders I had, whether it was at Blackwater or in the military, were the ones that didn't really want the job, but wanted to make sure that they were protecting other people. So company commanders, team leaders, if they were more interested in making sure that their people were safe, they were way better leaders. The people that wanted the leadership jobs, by far, got fired more times than anybody else. If you raised your hand and said, I want to do this, usually they was like, oh man, this guy's not going to be good for us. And we had 3 or 4 of those at Blackwater where we had to have like a little mutiny and say, this guy is terrible, he's going to get us killed. But he wanted to be a team leader. It's ridiculous.
Incredible. So we're talking to Morgan Lerette. He is a self-confessed mercenary. He worked for Blackwater in Iraq, and he was motivated to do so because he entered or re-upped after 9/11. I have great respect and admiration for what he did. He put his life on the line. Most of us just talk the talk, myself included. And here's a guy who went out and put his very life on the line to help protect our country. But that does lead me to a question, Morgan. Why does Blackwater exist? Our national defense budget, I believe, is $750 billion a year. Do we really need to be paying private contractors to protect our country? I mean, why doesn't our own Air Force, Army, Navy, Space Force, why aren't they providing that protection for our diplomats and our high-valued targets? Why do we need a private defense contractor to do it?
Well, that goes back to the Iraq War and how poorly planned the Iraq War was. What we wanted to do was go in and hand off Iraq to the locals and say, see, we're not occupiers. Once we went from a military mission to a diplomatic mission, then you have this vacuum where all these State Department, CIA, NSA, DIA, all these guys need to be protected, and you don't want to put a military face on it. So what do? Blackwater got created. Other companies, there was a ton of them over there, all got created to do this protective detail. What's happened is that it has become a very easy way for politicians to distance themselves from what is actually happening. We have contractors in Syria, we have them in Ukraine, we have them in Israel, we have them down at the border escorting unaccompanied minors and children. Politicians don't want their hands on that, so they contract to somebody who subcontracts to the person that's doing it. And if something bad happens, they say, "Oh, that was a bad apple. That wasn't us." Majorca is not going to sit there and say, "Oh no, that was me. I created that contract."
So, would it be accurate? Is there another way of saying what you just said? And don't let me put words in your mouth. But do we hire private military contractors to do things that the laws of our country don't allow our own military to do? Would that be a fair statement, or is that unjustified hyperbole and extrapolation of the reality?
Well, there's still jurisdiction, and you saw that with Blackwater, that you have like the FBI has jurisdiction over these civilians that are either in the combat zone or down at the border. The problem is who's doing the oversight. So yes, they are doing jobs that the U.S. government has never figured out how to do or how to staff, right? State Department had its own protective detail, but they didn't have enough people in Iraq to actually do it. And the ones that were on the protective detail would bring us in, and we would just stay on the bases while we were driving people around. So it's a job they don't want to do. It's a job they don't want to staff for. And it's a job that, like, if it gets ugly, you can say, that wasn't me.
So you're aware of what is being done and what is occurring at our southern border, right?
Oh, yeah. I live in Arizona. It caught us.
Yeah. So do you have a clue of why this administration, I mean, Trump had the annual influx of illegals shrunk to what is occurring in a month now. I mean, we had about 100,000 people coming across the southern border in a year when Trump left office, and that's about a maybe not even the monthly volume now, maybe higher than that. I mean, I read estimates of 7 to 10 million since Biden has become president, and it's hard to get accurate information really about exactly how many illegals are crossing the border. But I don't like it. Okay, $450 million a year to take care of these people, free board, free room, motor scooters, cash, daily stipends, and free services. So I don't like that. But what I like less is we don't know who is coming across our border. And I read on an almost daily, weekly basis that military-age Chinese men are crossing the southern border, that people from Iraq, people from Iran, people from Afghanistan are coming across our southern border. We know that because we're catching them. The problem is we just don't catch but a fraction of them. Do you worry about that? Do you stay awake at night worrying about that?
I don't stay awake at night. I sleep pretty good, so that's nice. But I was talking to the head of the Border Patrol Union a couple of weeks ago, and he said that they had 50 people from Africa, and they came in all together. 4 of them were on the terrorist watch list. Now, let's go back to how you actually get people on the terrorist watch list. You have to have the CIA out there, and they are being able to get names, identify people by fingerprints, by their eyes, the biometric stuff. I don't think that the CIA has a robust enough external force collecting intelligence to say these 46 are fine, but these 4 weren't. They came over on the same boat. They walked across together. And if somebody comes over and says, hey, you can't hang out with your buddy anymore because he's on a terrorist watch list, what are those guys going to do when they get into the United States? They're not going to be happy about it. They're not going to say like, oh, I guess I'm not a terrorist anymore. They let me through. It's ridiculous.
Well, do you think they're just coming here because they like our way of life and they want to live in the United States? I mean, my concern is that they're here to do bad things to us. And I don't know. I'm getting a little off the rails here, but have you ever been bit by red ants, fire ants? You know, I do a lot of hunting, and I have been sitting in a dove field before, and all of a sudden, I will be bitten by hundreds of ants all at the same time, which means that they have crawled up my leg and gotten onto my body without me knowing it, and then somehow they send a signal to all their buddies, okay, attack! And then they all bite at the same time. I'm fearful that all of these people that we suspect that have crossed our borders and relocated into the heartland of America are one day going to attack us like a bunch of red ants, and it's going to be fast, it's going to be furious, and we're not going to be prepared for it. Am I imagining this? Am I letting my imagination run away from me? Or is that a realistic fear?
I think that you're going to get red ants biting us in lone wolf situations because we do have a pretty robust intelligence apparatus internally to be able to stop that stuff. So I'm not dissuading what you're saying. The large scale stuff is just so much easier to identify and stop. But that lone wolf that's sitting there and he's just, on the internet and checking all of those websites where he's getting radicalized, that's going to happen. It's going to happen more often. It's just absolutely going to.
Well, and you say what's going to happen when they get here and they haven't been able to travel with their buddies who got intercepted. But my suspicion is that they're going to covey up, that they're going to find each other. They're going to go and hide in sleeper cells. And who knows what they brought with them. I mean, just last month, they discovered a stash, I believe I've got this right, of IUDs that didn't make it across the border, but that were found on the southern border. Well, now that's got to tell us something, right?
Yeah. I mean, the fact that they're finding IEDs down there, so I don't know. I just spaced it for some reason, but it's essentially ordnance, and it's one of two things is happening. One is that it could be that the people that are smuggling them are putting them on the southern border, so that if somebody comes across from a military or law enforcement on the U.S. side, that it stops them. I don't think they would do that. The cartels don't want to mess with the military, so they are bringing stuff in, and who knows what they're actually getting through. As opposed to when somebody gets freaked out and they see a border patrol guy and they drop that stuff on the ground and we find it later. So I agree with you. I mean, I think bringing over the ideology is a lot more scary than bringing over an IED, because if you want to create an IED, you could do it tomorrow. But that ideology is, I mean, it's just not congruent to the American way of life. And I'm not saying this about all the immigrants. If I was down there in Venezuela, I would have my family on the first train to get up north so that I could build a better life for them. That's probably the majority, but who is sneaking in with that majority? And we just don't know. And that's the scary part.
Well, here's the thing, and I hear what you're saying, and I like to think that I have a good heart, a big heart. Sometimes it's too big. But look, I mean, I'm building a house down here in West Palm Beach. A large percentage of our contractors, workers, are Hispanic. They are the nicest, most friendly, hardest working, grateful people that I've ever encountered. I genuinely love and appreciate them. But here's the thing. I did this radio show from the Roosevelt Hotel in New York 2 or 3 months ago. And I walked up to people on the street that were staying there. They were visitors at the Roosevelt Hotel. I was paying for it. You were paying for it. And I asked them, "Why are you here?" And they basically said, "I'm here because I want a better life." I'm like, "Well, what about political asylum? Are you being mistreated in your country?" No. What is that? I don't know what that is. So I don't buy this BS about they're here for political asylum. And I don't believe that our government is so benevolent that they are allowing them to come here because we are being charitable. If we were charitable, we would go take care of the United States citizens that I also talk to all throughout Manhattan who are homeless, who suffer from mental illness, who suffer from disease, who are hungry, who right now are on the streets of New York, and that someone will freeze to death tonight. Why are we not providing them shelter? Where is our compassion for those people? Where is the $450 million that we're spending to take care of the illegals not being redirected to take care of them? I would love to help. I would love to heal the world, and maybe someday we will. But it's not a realistic proposition to think that we can invite 12, 15 million people to America because we feel sorry for them and we want to provide them for a better life. And I don't buy it. I don't buy that that is the motivation for bringing them. I fear that we are bringing them either because of the greed for political power, which is also the storyline. My worry is, sounds like I worry a lot, doesn't it, Morgan? Well, I tell you, I think we got a lot to worry about. But I worry that people within our government, especially at the top, want to change America. Worse, I fear that there are people that want to destroy America as we know it. And you look at the amount of fentanyl that's being brought across the southern border, the number of people that are coming, and the indicia that we have that there are problems brewing. I think you just have to be crazy not to acknowledge it and want to do something about it. And I got to say one other thing while I'm on this rant. Forgive me. But I've been a very large critic on this show, publicly here and in other venues, about our intelligence agencies. Our listeners know I believe that the CIA killed Kennedy. I believe that they had an active hand and role in stealing the 2020 election. I think it's deep state. I think it's establishment. I think it's the intelligence agencies at work. But I want to quickly acknowledge that since 9/11, we have not had a disaster inside our border. To me, that is remarkable. And to me, I give the intelligence agencies 100% of the credit for having protected us. And so if we're going to sit up here and bash them, we damn well better give them praise where praise is due. Do you think they've got their hand on the pulse? Do you think they are capable of protecting us?
No, only because your intelligence is only as good as where you get it, right? So I call it gigo intelligence, garbage in, garbage out. If you look at the states that are Islamic republics, it is extremely difficult to be able to identify that this person is Osama bin Laden or Usama bin Laden. Is it an O or a U at the front? If you mess that up and you don't have biometrics data, then it's going to be the same stuff that you saw at like Staten Island, where immigrants come in and they say, "Is that how you spell your name?" And they say, "Yeah, that's how I spell my name." And there's no way to track if the same person is coming from Africa over to Venezuela to Mexico. There's no way they can track those people. They just can't. It's not comprehensible.
Morgan Lerette, I've got so much to thank you for. First of all, thank you for coming on The Truth with John Gordon today here on the John Fredericks Media Network. Thank you for your service to our country, both in the National Guard and as a private or as an employee of a private military contractor. I know that you put yourself in harm's way, and I don't know you well, but I know you well enough to, my instincts tell me it was for all the right reasons. Yeah, they paid you pretty good, but you put it on the line. We owe you a debt of gratitude. Thank you for joining us today, and I hope our paths will cross in the near future. And you're listening to The Truth. I'm John Gordon. We will be back next Saturday with another edition at high noon here on the John Fredericks Media Network. Have a great day, everybody.